Hello, everyone. We were talking about the foreign exchange market or the currency exchange market to be more exact. Isn't it wonderful that we can talk all about money constantly and never have to worry about having the burden of owning any of it? That's why you should become an economist. Anyway, what we were talking about is different exchange rate systems that have been um, done in the past. Okay. One thing that wasn't in your book, if you take certain classes, you may learn about mercantilism. That was done in the beginnings of the New World between 1400 and about 17 something. And basically, the goal in international trade there was to fill the coffers with gold and to avoid other nations from filling the coffers with gold. Well, that turned out to be not too efficient, and I'm not going to talk about mercantilism that much here. But what we have are several different types of exchange rate systems. Now, one, again, we said, is an academic exercise, really. It's a theoretical thing that doesn't exist in the real world, and so why shouldn't you learn about it? If you'll never use it, why not know it? And this is called the free floating exchange rate, and which means that under this scenario, a government really wouldn't do anything to influence the exchange rate. They would just trust the market to work its magic, and everything would work out well. Well, of course, if a trade surplus happens once every third ice age, the market working out exactly how you want it to do happens generally never, or not very often. So anyway, free floating is not done because governments do not trust the market to dictate all their policy. In fact, you really can't make some sort of policy for prosperity if you don't know, or at least have some idea of what is going to happen. So most countries use what's called a managed, or a lot of countries, I should say, the U.S., England, others, managed float, which means that they allow the market to move the currency exchange up or down, but they generally want to keep it within a range, so the governments will intervene in the market to either move the currency exchange rate up or down. For instance, if, say, the U.S. is worried about the high exchange rate of their dollar, which hurts exports, what they could do and have done to a certain extent is that they will sell dollars on the exchange market, which will increase supply and hopefully lower the exchange rate to a certain extent. So there's managed float. This is very similar to a fixed technique of managing the float called fixed by intervention. Okay. Now, fixed by intervention is very much like the managed float, except the managed float is sort of going for a range, a range of rates, whereas fixed, the government has agreed, or the nation's government has agreed to keep its exchange rate in terms of another's currency by treaty at a fixed exact amount. So what happens if something happens that in the currency market that will lower the value or raise it either above or beyond that, they will intervene in the market to bring it back to the fixed level by either selling their currency or buying their currency. Okay. Also, this notice or this term of being fixed, essentially what that means, now it can be fixed by decree in terms of, that's what Stalin did. That's what the Soviet Union did and there are a number of currencies that aren't convertible that are essentially fixed by decree, like North Korea. But not many people want to buy their currency anyway. But anyway, most fixed forms of currency management are fixed to sort of a third-party standard. And in previous times, that was according to the gold standard. Okay, the U.S. currency, the value of U.S. currency was fixed to the gold standard. So that meant that the government would declare that an ounce of gold could be purchased and could be exchanged in demand for a certain amount of dollars. For instance, for a while it was $20. Okay, you could buy 1 ounce of gold for $20. Okay, well, in another currency, maybe a peso, you could buy, say, 1 ounce of gold for 200 pesos, okay? So, since you could buy 1 ounce of gold for US dollar for $20, okay, and it'd be, for Mexico, say, and I'm just making up these numbers out of my head, 200, so it would take under this scenario, it would take 10 pesos. Right? Yeah. Take 10 pesos to make $1. That's probably a very heroic assumption for the peso. I haven't checked what it has been recently, but it's a lot more than 10 pesos, I'm sure. But anyway, this shows how it's done. So the U.S. fixed its currency value to a gold standard, and then whatever currency, the exchange rate between the U.S. and that currency was determined by how much of the foreign currency it would take to buy 1 ounce of gold. Okay, so that lasted for a while, quite a while, and again, as your cat would say, there are some advantages maybe, but disadvantages to being fixed, and let's talk about that. The good thing about rates being the same, fixed rates, they're predictable. Predictable, okay? You can always tell what they're going to be if they're fixed because they don't go anywhere. They don't vary, okay? Being fixed, though, like it is in real life, if you are fixed, not in the cat way, but in, excuse me, If you are planted in one spot and fixed at that spot, if the situation requires that you move, you're not flexible and can't react, okay? So fixed rates, if there is a situation where aggregate demand goes down, since like the gold standard, the fixed rate, the currency has to be backed up by the same amount of gold, say, as the currency is worth, you can't do anything in terms of monetary policies, okay? Because, and that would mean that to keep to the gold standard, you would have to do an austerity program, and the income level of people would go down, and that happened to Greece a few years back. There are some people that advocate a return to the gold standard. These people, in my opinion, have no idea what they're talking about. But many people speak out passionately on things they know nothing about, okay? I probably do that at times, but I'll tell you why the gold standard is not a good idea, okay? The U.S. money now is a fiat money standard, which is fiat money is paper money. It's not the currency of Italy, which I've gotten some people that didn't study on a quiz. Fiat money, paper money. It's not a commodity. It's not good for anything except money. The U.S. dollar and most everybody's fixed currency nowadays are fixed to the U.S. dollar. So they have to have, before they can get currency out there, particularly under a currency board arrangement, they have to have it backed up with the U.S. dollar. Okay. So let's go back to our money market here. Okay. And we have the interest rate here, and we have the quantity of money. Okay. Now, the demand for money goes like that, and where the supply that is fixed, according to government policy, where that is the prime interest rate, okay? Well, if suddenly the U.S. dollar had to be backed up by gold, the money supply would move way back to there. Interest rates would go through the roof. Aggregate demand, which equals consumption, that would go down, plus investment, that would go down. Government, their tax revenues would go down, and net exports would go down. So the economy basically would tank. Okay, so basically, U.S. currency is valuable, and the world standard of trading, generally, because the government backs it up by their declaration that they think it's valuable. That's it. Now, that sounds kind of scary. But the U.S. government is powerful. It still is the most powerful government in the world in terms of assets. You can pretty much trust the dollar being constant, or at least being, what's the word? Being legitimate and being worth something. Okay. So that's basically it on the exchange rate. Please ask me any questions if you don't understand something. So thanks a lot for listening.